Before I get started, I do consulting on where you can move. I'll work with you to find the perfect place for you to move to. There's more information at the end of the video about that. Now let's get started. This is the Cedar River. You probably haven't heard of the Cedar River before. It begins somewhere in Iowa and winds up in the Mississippi at some point. It's not a big river, but for Cedar Rapids, it's an important one. This river has determined this city's fate for a long time. Over here is about 500 feet from the banks of that river. All of this used to be housing, but today there's nothing here. All around us is devastation. Back in 2008, there was a weird, rare storm that formed in the Gulf of Mexico and it moved north. A lot of snow fell here in Iowa that winter. Then, just when the snow was going to melt, Iowa was hit by a ton of rain. And I mean a ton of rain. All that water caused the rivers all over the state to crest way above their previous recorded highs. You might remember hearing about it on TV. They called it Iowa's Katrina, and Cedar Rapids got the worst of it. When the river overflowed here, it wiped out a ton of low-income neighborhoods that were standing right here, where I am now. It also ruined a lot of downtown. You can see here what it looked like in downtown Cedar Rapids back then. Entire blocks were underwater and a bunch of jobs were lost. It was terrible. But this isn't a sad story. It might be a good one. Cedar Rapids, Iowa, everyone. Named because it's on a river. I think every big city in Iowa is along some river. And across the river is the famous Quaker Oats factory. You know, where they make cereal. This is the cereal capital of the world, everyone. And right here is the largest cereal plant on Earth. It's just about the tallest building in Cedar Rapids. From blocks away, you can smell all the Captain Crunch and the Honey Nut Cheerios and Lucky Charms being made inside. They've been making cereal here since the late 1800s, and this factory's been a big part of the economy here. There's factories all over Cedar Rapids. Factory jobs have always been what Cedar Rapids has been about. They're trying to bring in different types of companies to diversify things, but for a lot of the people here, factory jobs are all there is. It's a statewide issue. So why are we in Cedar Rapids anyways? Because it's one of the best places to live in the country, at least according to a bunch of random websites with various rankings. I've been on this road trip for 2 weeks now, and it's certainly the biggest city I've seen in a while. Cedar Rapids' population has gone up a little bit. It's all the way up to 133,125 at last count. That's a lot for Iowa. Things here today are far better than they were 20 years ago. For a long time, Cedar Rapids was struggling. The post-industrial era wasn't very kind to this place. Companies were leaving, downtown was stagnant, and it just felt old. But the flood came in and really changed this city's fortunes. It forced the city to rebuild and rethink the way it was operating. And that's what Cedar Rapids needed the most. Downtown needed a major facelift, and folks say the flooding gave the community a reason to do just that. Today, downtown Cedar Rapids is kinda on the upswing. Downtown has seen a big boost with new buildings and condos and fun things to do. There's more economic output now than before the flood. But it's not thrilling or anything. It's still pretty sleepy, kind of basic, sort of blah. But at least it's clean and safe, just like the rest of Iowa, right? Some of the biggest changes you'll see here are just outside of downtown. There's a new hip area that everyone's raving about, an area they call the District. It's the new arts and cultural center of town. This was all underwater during those massive floods, but this part of town's been reignited too. Here in Czech Village and New Bohemia, you'll see lots of younger people and families strolling around. It's clean and nice and new with contemporary condos, apartments, restaurants, and bars all over. You could call it the face of the new Cedar Rapids and an example of the new Iowa. Remember, this was always kind of an ugly industrial factory town, but it's becoming more modern and progressive and cultured. And it's definitely more fun for younger people now, too. Wherever you go downtown, though, it's pretty vanilla. I didn't see any homeless people anywhere, that's for sure. I didn't see any graffiti or trash or bums on every corner. But I did see the same homeless guy 3 times on the day I was here. Here's the first time I saw him outside of a Casey's near downtown. He asked me if he can get a ride. I was like, no, dude, you're not getting in my car. That's weird. Then I saw him again on the other side of the river at another Casey's. There's a Casey's around every corner in this state, and there were 2 within a block of my hotel. There's some culture here, not a lot. I mean, this is Iowa and everything. Cedar Rapids has some museums and parks. They have an event center that brings in all kinds of concerts and shows. I guess if you like Nate Bargatze or casting crowns, you'd be satisfied. There's good Mexican food in Cedar Rapids. You Midwest people love your Mexican food, I tell ya. I went to Los Compadres. Big portions, great people. I highly recommend it. And they paid me in Dos Equis Amber to say that. People in Iowa love their made-right sandwiches. If you've never had a made-right, you need to try it. It's kind of like a not sloppy Joe. Loose meat Sanny for the win. And look at those prices, people. Sorta, not bad. I found this great restaurant bar called the Shack Tavern way down by the river. Here you can listen to music out on the patio with views of the river and the trains crossing by. Probably with cereal on board.
Frosted Lucky Charms. They're magically delicious.
Did you know Americans buy 2.7 billion boxes of cereal every year?
Well, that's a lot of honey bunches of oats, Mappy. How much sugar is that?
More than we should eat in one sitting.
Well, I agree. That's a lot of sugar. But if we stopped eating breakfast cereal, then the poor people in Cedar Rapids would be out of work.
They can always eat oatmeal.
Oatmeal. Now that's a meal for a real man, partner. Jobs-wise, it ain't gonna wow you here, but it's Iowa. Most of the liberal cities in Iowa are sort of Rust Belt light. There have been a lot of lost jobs here, just like there have been in other not very important cities around the country. The factory jobs here pay well, anywhere from 80 to 100K a year, but it's long hours and dangerous labor. Meat processing, paper production, ethanol production, food production. Sure, there's some high-end tech jobs here, and Cedar Rapids is working to evolve its economy. Rockwell Collins is a great place to work if you're an engineer. But like most of Iowa, there's a big worker shortage here, so it's hard for these companies to grow. If it wasn't for the Hispanics moving in, the companies would suffer even more. It's just tough to get people to come here and even harder to get people to stay. And that's despite the low cost of living, the lack of traffic, and the relative safety. It's just a place for middle-class, middle-aged people to raise their average kids. I guess one bright side is a lot of the young people who leave for Minneapolis, Chicago, and Omaha, they wind up realizing how good they had it here and they come back home. For now. A lot of people complain it's boring here, but is it safe? Sorta. It's below average for crime. Most of Iowa is below average for crime. There's a fair amount of drug use here, but this is nothing compared to real crime you'll see around the country. For the most part, it's just good, quiet people. The neighborhoods here are like many other cities in Iowa. A lot of the growth here happened after 1970, so most of Cedar Rapids is a big suburb. Where we've been driving is what's considered the bad side of town. We always have to look at that. Everybody agrees Wellington Heights is the worst part of Cedar Rapids. This is what that looks like, and it's not that bad at all. A lot of homes here on this side of town sell for $20,000 or lower. I know, right? This house sold for $5,500 not too long ago. I know, right? For perspective, this is what the nice side of town looks like. A lot of homes on this street sold for $650,000. I know, right? That actually seems like a lot for kinda big city Iowa, I have to say. For the most part, it's super cheap here compared to where you live. This is the first big city in Iowa I've stopped in, and it's pretty much what I expected. It's cheap, schools are good, it's pretty safe. Where else are you going to get a nice home in a decent area for $250K? Huh? Not anymore. Plus, the people here are nice and generous. There aren't large amounts of poverty. It's not run down everywhere. If you want diversity and way more things to do, you can move to Des Moines or Ames. Take a hike. It's not wonderful here. It's okay, at least from an outside perspective. You could live a really nice life here and disappear from the rest of us. There's certainly far worse places to live in the country. Iowa seems to think this place is good, but Iowa also said Sioux City and Fort Dodge are bad. Maybe Iowa's good is skewed, and Iowa's bad is too. I can't figure this state out yet. But I can say they're going to have to bring in more modern jobs. What happens if robots learn how to make cereal one day? Because automation like that would really wreck the middle class here. We've seen what happens when a place relies on one type of industry for too long. The following day, I'd get a first-hand look at that very situation, because the place I went to the next day is definitely struggling. And after 4 days, I finally saw Iowa's ugly side. It proved that this state is more mortal than I thought it was. Yeah, there's only 3 cities in Iowa that have more than 100,000 people. Does Cedar Rapids seem like a big city to you guys?
To me?
To you, I guess, and to Iowans in general. Like, is that the big city outside of Des Moines? Are people like, oh, that's a big place?
I feel like if a person hadn't like really been anywhere, they might think that. Like, people who live in like really rural areas might be like, "Oh, you live in." To me, that like, I imagine someone saying that with an accent for some reason, like, "Oh, y'all live in the big city, huh?" But no, like I never really thought of it as a big city because I was always traveling, to other places. But people who live in small towns probably do think of it as the big city, I suppose.
Mm-hmm.
So.
How's Cedar Rapids changed? I know that the floods came in and kind of made the city improve itself. I guess it was kind of stagnant, kind of felt old and industrial. And then here comes the floods. And then now it's like rebirth, like a baptism of sorts. Is that one way that Cedar Rapids has changed? Is just the facelift that the city got after the floods?
Yeah, hopefully we can get one more flood, and then it might be on par with some of the other cities. But it was the flood was sort of like a blessing in disguise because I don't know. I spoke to you about it before, but it kind of ruined a lot of things. Became more gentrified, I guess, after the flood. Whether you think positively of that term or negatively, it kind of wiped out some of the lower income areas and some of the sketchier areas, really. And now it's been built up to be more of like the trendy, like kind of hipster areas. So, did you go to any of those areas?
Yeah, I went over on the banks where a lot of the low income housing was gone. I guess it's called the Northwest neighborhood. I checked all that out and saw the devastation that was over there. I went and checked out all the new, hip and modern, fun neighborhoods that have kind of flourished in the last 10 years since they rebuilt everything. Mm-hmm. And I can see exactly what you're talking about. I like Cedar Rapids. It's very clean. It's very safe. It's very vanilla. Just the perfect Iowa place. I mean, if you were gonna, I spent a week in Iowa and drove all around the state. And I feel like Cedar Rapids was just a larger example of all the other small places that I saw. Just clean, safe, quiet, a little boring, nice people. Just the perfect American city, I guess is the best way to describe it.
If you ask the locals there, though, you know how, you say like it's safe, it's, all that stuff. People are like, it's getting bad here. Like, people really think that it's getting, pretty bad there as far as crime goes. So,
How
yeah.
would you define crime though? I mean, getting bad. How would you define bad? Because I feel like Iowans live in a bubble and they're like, oh my God, this is bad. But the real world is much worse than Iowa. So by bad, do you mean you went from like very little crime to very little, a little bit more crime?
Yeah, I would say I mean, I don't think it's bad personally, but like I hear that a lot though. But yeah, it definitely has, the crime rate has definitely increased as far as like um, gang related violence, like murders, stuff like that has gotten like more prevalent. I feel like I never heard of a place getting like people actually getting shot like at like a club before, but downtown Cedar Rapids a few months ago, this club got like shot up and people got killed. So stuff like that. I mean, overall it's pretty safe, but yeah, just like I feel like the overall crime rate as far as people like shootings and murders are like, it's getting worse. Like relative to like Chicago or any big city, it's probably like this is the safest neighborhood here, but it's getting a little bit worse.
Why do people think the crime's going up? Are bad people moving in?
That's what a lot of people think. Yeah.
Why Cedar Rapids? Why are gangsters and lowlives going to come to little Cedar Rapids? What are they going to gain by that?
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard some people say this, and like it sounds ridiculous to me, but they said in Chicago, they're like on the south side of, I've heard many people say this, and it's pretty ridiculous. On the south side of Chicago, they have billboards promoting Cedar Rapids, saying like cost of living's low, like safe, all of these things. They said there's an actual billboard uh, promoting Cedar Rapids, which I've never even heard of like a city promoting itself out in another city. So I don't even think that's true, but like that's what people say. And Chicago's so close that like a lot of people from Chicago do come there because it's cheaper and it is safer than Chicago. So yeah, I don't
Man,
know about what.
yeah, you do not want Chicago coming to your hood. I actually believe that that's true because I have friends that live in central Illinois, and there were billboards up in South Chicago that were like, "Go down to Danville, Illinois. It's cheap. There's like HUD housing," and I don't think that that was put up by Danville, Illinois. I think that that was put up by Chicago. That was like, y'all can go somewhere else. Here's an idea, and put the billboard up. So I wouldn't be shocked if there was a billboard, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was put up by the city of Chicago as a way to kind of tell these people like there's alternatives to living here. You like low lives. Why don't you move
That's
on
so
somewhere else?
weird. Yeah, that seems really weird to me. But like I said, maybe it is true, but it seems like a weird thing to do. But yeah.
They did it to Indianapolis. Indianapolis used to be like average crime. It's going through the roof over there. All the Chicago BS is spilling into Indianapolis,
Hmm.
and it's taken over parts of that city, and it's just terrible. So I hope that if there is a billboard, somebody needs to complain, and maybe Cedar Rapids needs to put a billboard up on the way into town that says "Turn around if you're from Chicago."
It's crazy here. It's like Florida here. People eat each other's faces and stuff.
Yeah,
Um, but
yeah, there's
yeah,
zombies everywhere.
yeah, exactly. But you do hear a lot of that, like uh, you do hear a lot of that, like sentiment echoed, like all those people from Chicago are coming here because of all of the subsidized housing and and all this stuff. So like that's definitely a common theme as to why the crime is getting worse. So I guess I just maybe should believe it more than I do, I guess. But part of me is always just like, oh, you just want to blame like the crime on people who aren't from here. But Chicago's only 4 hours away, so it's not hard to get here. or to get there from Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more drugs than you would think. I imagine. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
more drug use than you would think. Like, um, but not as like, I don't know. No. Is it like, I don't know, it's just more densely populated in a place like California? So is it just there's more people, so there's more drug? Like, I don't know. There's plenty of people who do drugs, I guess, like in Iowa. You know what I mean? Like, this is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. No
like
place is perfect.
yeah,
But I feel like the drug use in Iowa is less, and it's not as in your face. Like there aren't people standing around, laying on the ground, visually stumbling around all
yeah,
over Iowa on
yeah,
drugs, and it's being overlooked and in fact catered to like
yeah.
it
That's
is in
true.
other places. You know, you guys have the rule, the law, and yeah, people are smoking weed, they're getting high. There's meth in small towns, and it's all over in Cedar Rapids and in other parts of Iowa, but it's just not in your face. It's not.
Yeah,
It's not. I think most people would say, you know, do your damn drugs, do whatever you want in your house, in your yard. Just leave it at home. Don't come to
yeah,
the park. Don't come
yeah,
downtown. Don't stand out in the front of the grocery stores. Don't wander around and make it to the point that we have to deal with it, that we have to step in it, that we have to look at it, that my kids have to see it, that it's
yeah.
and please, local governments, don't encourage it.
Hmm.
And so I think that, yeah, you guys aren't perfect, but you don't have those problems that you have in the big cities at all.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Do Iowans realize how good they have it in compared to the rest of the country? We talked about Chicago and how bad parts of Chicago are. Do you guys have like an understanding amongst each other that things are a lot less good outside of your borders?
What do you mean, like
As far as cost of living, as far as crime, as far as the type of people, affordability, things that are homelessness, drugs, just the ugly of America. I don't feel like Iowa has very much of that. Are you guys
Yeah.
aware of that at all? Do you discuss that amongst yourselves?
Um, I think that most people who live in Iowa don't really want to live in Iowa, truly. So they probably have they have their own issues with Iowa, whether it's like a flyover state. There's really nothing to do there. The weather's like pretty much awful regardless of the season. You know, you get like really extreme colds and then you get really extreme hots, not much mild weather, like not much like 70-degree San Diego every day. Like it's never like that. If it is, it's like super windy. Um, but as far as, I don't know, like as far as, how safe it is to live there, the cost of living, I mean, you kind of pay for what you get, I guess. Like you want to live in San Diego because it's beautiful weather and there's oceans, and so you have to pay for it. And in Iowa, you have to pay less because it's shitty weather and there's not much to do, I guess. But I don't know if that answers your question, but I think people understand. Yeah, that's why a lot of people do leave and come back because, like, people are decent, family, their families are there, cost of living is safe, those things. So I think people realize that, but overall, like, no one outside of Iowa um, dreams about moving to Iowa someday. It's not like, so, nobody's goal is to like one day I'm going to make it and move to Iowa. So, yeah.
So I'm hearing that. I've heard that from a few people I've talked to from Iowa, and they say that a lot of people can't wait to get the hell out of Iowa when they graduate high school or college. And then by the time they turn 30 or 35 and it's time to kind of settle down and get more serious, they want to come back.
People move back here because I think because of family and stuff a lot of times, and like the cost of living, and like you move somewhere else and you kind of like get that out of your system maybe, and then you're like, okay, now I'll just kind of come back and like settle down a little bit. Um, but I mean, you've moved, like I've traveled a lot, but I haven't lived in other states, which it sounds like you probably have. And like, I've always thought if I moved to Colorado, if I moved to California, like what would my daily life really be? Like how much different would it truly be like normally every day? Like, wouldn't I just, for the most part, like wake up and you have a job to do and then like you come home? It's not like every day you're like in California on the beach every day, or like hiking mountains in Colorado every day. Like,
So like this industrial job thing that's going on in Cedar Rapids, most of the jobs, I guess a lot of the jobs are factory jobs where you have people that the blue collar, high paying, hard work, kind of lifetime commitment type jobs. Do you think Cedar Rapids is going to be able to evolve past that? Because eventually some of those kind of jobs are going away, man. It's sad.
mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't know if I told you, but I worked at one of those places for like 10 years and they're actually on strike right now. I don't know if you saw that when you were in town, but they're on strike. It's a union job and they're on strike. But yeah, they'll probably be automated eventually. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to evolve. I mean, it's just kind of built on that industrialism. You drove around. I'm sure you saw like and smelled like factories everywhere. I don't know what it's gonna do because those like are sort of the backbone of the city for most of like the middle class there. And you said like they're hardworking jobs. It's not so much the case. They're really not anymore. At least the one that I worked at, like no one worked hard there. Actually, it was really kind of sad. Actually, just because it was like you just basically sat there the whole day. People slept like 4 or 5 hours a day. So they used to be hardworking jobs until some sort of automation to where now like you don't have to get up out of a chair that often. So that's kind of what they're like. But as far as the city evolving, I don't know. Hopefully something attracts some tech, or something progressive that it's cheap to have a spot there or something.
You seem kind of nonchalant. Are you gonna be in Cedar Rapids the rest of your life, or are you gonna take off? I mean, you seem kind of like, Are you?
Well, I just started my own business a couple months ago there.
Okay, so you're gonna be in Cedar Rapids for a while.
I don't know. I don't know.
I feel like you guys are like kind of like in your own little bubble and in La La Land up there.
Like we're just insulated from
the rest of the country. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's not bad because there's very few good places to live in the country left that are affordable. And, hopefully it stays like that for a while. Cause when somebody decides that your state is the next place to be, look at Idaho. Like Idaho was no man's land. Nobody ever thought about moving there. And all of a sudden it became a popular place to go. And now Idahoans are pretty pissed off about that. The state's getting overrun with people. The cost of living is going up, traffic, crime, all the crap that people were fleeing from California. They're taking it up there to Idaho. And it was beautiful up there. And you drive around Boise and the suburbs and the hills are all getting torn up and it looks like Southern California. And
Really?
So be glad that you don't have a lot of people banging down your doors to move there. Because once that happens, you can't turn it around, I don't think.
But you wouldn't live in Iowa.
I would not live in Iowa. No. I like it there. I like visiting there. I like driving through it in the summertime. I've done that Midwest thing. I lived in, for 5 years. I feel like I did my time in the Midwest.
You say it's like it's a sentence, I
think that it's something that everybody should actually experience. I do. I feel like everybody should live in the Midwest in a smallish kind of area for a certain amount of time to appreciate what that's like, because there's no place like it. Are you looking to move and need advice? I do consulting. That's right. I'll sit down and talk about where the next perfect place for you and your family should be. I do it all the time. Together, let's find you a new home that's safe and checks all your boxes. You can get my email in the description to find out how I can help you find your perfect relocation. And I can also help you find your new house too. Email me and I'll work with you on not just helping you figure out where to move, but I can help you find your perfect home too. That's right. I know awesome, reliable agents all over the country, and I'd love to connect you to somebody who can help you search for that perfect home. Hey guys, if you learned something new about America or what it's like to live in America, great. You should think about subscribing and turning on your notifications. You can also click one of these videos or playlists for more. You can also now buy my songs on iTunes and other formats. Click the link in the description. Thanks for watching. And remember, while we all might have different views, we should all be nice to each other and try to make the U.S. a better place in a positive way.
This is Sage, Nick's manager. This has been a Corner House Entertainment production.